us for another episode of Kari in the Kitchen. I'm Kari Auringer, the winemaker for Cornerstone Cellars, and my husband Jeff.
Hi.
It's nice to see you in the kitchen again.
Nice to be back in the kitchen.
And we took a couple of weeks off through the holidays.
A little holiday vacation.
We did take a little vacation. So it's not that we weren't here in the kitchen, we just weren't on Facebook Live or Instagram Live.
We cooked a whole lot of stuff over the holidays.
Yeah, we did. And so we're going to do a couple of our favorite recipes.
Yeah, that's the theme of today's show is what did we cook for Christmas?
What did we cook for Christmas over our Christmas vacation? So we've got two recipes that we're going to do today, and then we've got two wines. For the white wine drinkers, we are going to taste the 2019 Sauvignon Blanc from the Farina Vineyard, Cornerstone Cellars. That's over in the Sonoma Mountain, that vineyard. Will you drink to that? Me too. Because you can't be cooking without having wine.
Not allowed to cook without having a little wine.
Lovely. And then the second wine is Cabernet Sauvignon. We're going to do the 2018 Bechelins, which is really our flagship Cabernet at Cornerstone. So
that's your ambassador. That's the friendliest little cab to go out there and just make everybody happy.
It is. It doesn't need a whole lot of time in the cellar. We can certainly age it, but it doesn't need that. And we found over the holidays that it went with quite a few of the dishes we were preparing.
That'll go for 5 years or 10 years or 10 minutes.
10 minutes is fine. That's about all I'm going to age it. I'm not that patient. So let's get started if we could. We've got two dishes. We've got one that was really, it paired beautifully with the Sauvignon Blanc, and that's the shrimp dish.
Yeah.
Right, with an herbed butter sauce. And so I'm going to let you talk about that, and I'll talk about the wine.
Yeah, sure. The very first dish we're doing, as she said, is a shrimp dish. It's a lovely dish that we've had it a couple of times at a restaurant that we like to go to down in Santa Barbara, and we decided let's try to make it. So we looked at the menu and kind of got an idea of what the ingredients were, and then we made up what we thought was a good facsimile of what we've eaten before. And it is pretty simple. It's just some shrimp that are going to be poached in butter, similar to our poached scallop dish. But this is a beautiful little shrimp dish that we can just put some heat on the shrimp first. The first thing you do, and there's a recipe that's going to be coming to you from this, and we definitely wanted to, you basically fry it. You can use bacon or pancetta or whatever you want, but we sort of crisped up the pancetta first, and then I caramelized the little scallops or shallots, and also the garlic, and just to get them soft and pre-cook them. And those are all set aside, and now we're just waiting for the butter to heat up, and then you just take the shrimp and you start cooking those. So
we've got, they're deveined and they're peeled.
Yeah, it's deveined and peeled shrimp.
Yeah, and they took the tails off.
And I pulled the tails off myself, and they squealed every time I pulled.
No, they didn't. And you don't have to, you can certainly leave the tails on. We've served this as an appetizer before, and so it's easier to pick up if there's a tail still on there, but if you're serving it as an entree, then you probably want to have them completely ready to go.
As an entree or even a seated first course, you would want to put the tails off. But we're cooking a bunch. We're cooking a little over a pound, and we were able to find these with a little parsley and garlic thrown in already, so I said, what the heck, because that's what the recipe calls for.
I was just going to say, that's already got a little bit of marinade on it.
That it does.
Makes it a little easier. I'm all for the shortcuts. You know, as much as we were cooking the last few weeks, it's nice to have a shortcut here and there. And what I love about this dish in particular is it is very easy and it's very flavorful.
It's incredibly flavorful, and it's delicious. And what we loved about this dish when we first had it was it's got the rich buttery characteristic, it's got the nice richness of shrimp, but it also has pancetta and garlic. So it's got this real savory deliciousness along with some really, really great butter shrimp characteristics. We love it.
And so this is really just going to take a few minutes.
This is a very short period of time. I am a big fan of not overcooking your shrimp, and what I always say is put them in there until they start to turn orange, start to turn opaque. You flip them, and then as soon as you flip them, you start adding your ingredients. So this is just a way of getting your shrimp partially cooked before you start adding the other flavors to it. You don't want to cook them all the way through.
But you've already carved on the pancetta and the garlic anyway, so a lot of this is already
Absolutely.
along. So
All
you're
we're
just
gonna
gonna finish it.
All we're going to be doing is adding flavors like the parsley and the lemon and the white wine, a little salt and pepper, and we're going to add the pancetta and the garlic and the shallots that are already done, and then we're going to be adding some herbs, and you might want to talk to me about the herbs. Look
Got
at
it
you.
right here in my hand.
And some chili pepper flakes, which I really think brightens this whole dish up and gives you a little pop.
And you know, I don't care for that much heat.
No.
So we're just gonna put in enough just to give it just a little bit of complexity, really is all it does. So one of the ingredients that we're gonna use is the winemaker's pantry, and it's a spiced herb blend that's made by Sharon DeMonte. She's the tastemaker with the winemaker's pantry. And we have these designed specifically for each varietal. So in particular, we use the Sauvignon Blanc blend with the Sauvignon Blanc dish with the shrimp. And then it also comes in Pinot Noir, Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon. So we're going to use the Cabernet Sauvignon with the second dish that we're working on, which we haven't said yet, but it's a beef tenderloin. And it's just a way to have a bridge ingredient between your food and your wine.
Exactly.
So I can see those shrimp are moving along pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, these have only been here about 2 minutes, and they've already started to turn orange on one side. I'm flipping real quickly so that they don't overcook. And after 2 minutes, you just flip them, and then you start adding your ingredients as soon as you flip them, because you don't have to wait for them to start cooking, or else they'll become overcooked. I'm sure you've all had rubbery shrimp. It's just too much cooking. But when you get them nice and soft and succulent, oh man, they're so good.
Yeah.
So what is that? 2 to 3 minutes that they're in the heat, and then you immediately start adding your ingredients. And the first thing I want to add is a little white wine, and that's the very same white wine that we're going to be drinking with it. So it's always nice to add the wine that you're going to do. Yep.
Couple ounces, right?
Yep. And the reason I put it in first is for flavor, but also to give it a chance to have the alcohol cook off. Then another brightness that we're adding to it is the juice of a half a lemon. And it's so easy to cook this dish. Boom. And you just squeeze about a half a lemon in there and you're good.
Good.
Pardon me.
Yeah, got to.
And then I'm going to add in a little bit of the parsley.
A little parsley. Could you use cilantro too?
You could use cilantro, and I almost did because I know you love cilantro.
I love cilantro.
But
not everyone does.
No, and I wanted to use parsley.
Yeah.
And then I'm putting in the garlic and the shallots that are already cooked, and they're just going to have to be incorporated into the flavors.
And you just did those for a few minutes just to caramelize them a little bit.
Yeah, about 3 to 5 minutes, and on pretty medium-low heat, and that's just to give them a little bit of flavor, soften up the garlic, and also soften up the shallots. Because shallots are so delicious, but they're pretty pungent. Okay, this is darn near done. I mean, look at those shrimp.
It really is. It takes just a couple of minutes.
Now we're going to add the winemaker's pantry herbs to it.
About a teaspoon?
A teaspoon of it, exactly. Get the recipe. And then a teaspoon of the chili pepper flakes.
Chili pepper flakes. So just enough for a little bit of, I wouldn't even call it heat, but if you like spicy, you certainly can use a lot more.
There's a little bit of spice in there, but not much. And Kari, you've gotten so much better about eating spice. You have such a delicate palate.
I am very delicate, yet I manned up.
You did.
I did. So yeah, there are some spicy dishes now that I would not have been able to eat in the past that I now enjoy very much.
And now you want to add a little bit of salt. It's only about a quarter of a teaspoon of salt. I just grind it fresh right there, and I guess at about a quarter teaspoon, but you can measure it out if you're really that kind of person. You want to make sure it's exact.
One of the nice things about the Winemaker Pantry Herb Spice Blend, as comparing it to some of those you find in the marketplace, pre-made, these don't have a lot of salt in them. They have a lot of flavor, there's a lot of herb in there, but there really isn't a lot of salt. And some of those pre-made blends that you find in the grocery store are really mostly salt. So what I love about this is it's a lot of flavor, but it doesn't end up over-salting your dish.
So I started that on medium-high, but I turned it down to medium, and now I'm going to turn it down to low. And I'm just letting the parsley wilt a little bit. If you're using cilantro, it'll wilt as well. And then this is done.
It's done.
Done.
And it smells fantastic.
And it took, what, 4 or 5 minutes to cook that whole dish?
It smells right.
Oh, it is.
But yet savory. It's nice.
It's going to be
So
really
I
good.
think, well, we actually know because we did this over the holidays, this is a perfect pair with the Sauvignon Blanc. The bright tropical fruit, the citrus, the lemon flower aromatics. Really make this, I think, a beautiful pair. This is the 2019, is our current vintage of the Sauvignon Blanc. It's from the Farina Vineyard in Sonoma Mountain. We've
Let me
got.
dish it up for you.
Would you? That'd be fantastic. Can't wait to try it.
It smells ridiculous. I mean, it smells like lemons and garlic and just beautiful bright flavors.
And it took minutes.
Oh, I mean, you could have people walking in the door and you go, hold on, boom, and by the time they get their coats off, you have the darn thing almost served.
And we did have some surprise guests show up over the holidays.
That was
Like,
fun.
hey, we're in the neighborhood, we're on our way. And I'm like, all right. And so we were able to kind of whip up a few things.
People drop by with gifts. Oh, hey, we have a gift for you. Like, oh, good.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, would you like a glass of wine?
Yeah.
How about some cheese?
And then, you know, and as we've talked about in the past, we keep some charcuterie and some cheese on hand just for that occasion, and that turns out pretty nice as well.
And if we had any shrimp on hand, these are pretty simple ingredients. You salt and pepper, a little bit of garlic and stuff. You could make this in no time at all.
You could. You can keep
There you
frozen
go.
shrimp.
That might be
You could
2
have
minutes,
frozen
sorry.
shrimp. That's all right. I'm happy to try them. You can't take them away now.
But the shrimp end up being plump. No, I wouldn't try to take them away. I value my skin.
And tender.
Yeah, they turn out plump and tender, and when you bite into them, they're not that rubbery, terrible shrimp.
They're soft. They actually, you don't need a knife to cut them.
What I call banquet shrimp. Not good.
Not good. Not banquet shrimp. Not good.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm going to take a little sip of the Sauvignon Blanc. This is our 2019. From Cornerstone Cellars. Take a nibble of the shrimps. Oh. It takes minutes.
That's a thumbs up all the way. You have the brightness of the lemon, you have the richness and the butter and the savoriness of the garlic, and then you have this pancetta hit. Oh, that's good.
It brings out I haven't tried it yet. It brings out the tropical fruit. It gives it a little bit of a lush, kind of a juicy, kind of a punch to it, but there's that nice crisp acidity that works when you there's lemon in the shrimp, so there's that acidity is really nice and balanced.
Oh, it's a very balanced dish, and then you have a little bit of that green flavor from the parsley, and just a little hint of that base of shallot. The shallot gives it that nice, rich base.
It does. Well, honey, that's a beautiful thing.
Man, that's good. You could actually serve that on little skewers as an appetizer. You could serve it as a first course like we've done here. You could also serve it over rice or angel hair pasta as a main course.
That would be really
I'm
great.
telling you, angel hair pasta on this is like heaven.
But there's
so
some
good.
sauce there in the pan yet.
Yeah. And I think the secret ingredients, which is
It's
something,
butter.
well, it's butter.
It's butter.
No, I think the thing that really turns this differently than other shrimp dishes is the addition of the pancetta or bacon. You've got that little pork hit.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. It's a little salty and it's savory.
that's good.
It's delightful. All right.
Cheers.
Congratulations.
Very fast, very easy, and big crowd pleaser. Everybody generally likes shrimp. There's a few people that are allergic to shellfish, and you got to be careful of that. But boy, this is a good dish to serve.
It
people.
really is. And it isn't too hot. I get a little bit of the from the red pepper, but it's not overpowering and it hasn't blown up my palate.
Well, a good thing about flash cooking is that it doesn't give it enough time to really you ooze into the dish.
Gotcha.
If you cook this for a long time, like you would a pasta sauce,
Yeah.
it could definitely incorporate heat all the way through.
Yeah. Well, we don't want that. So the second dish that we wanted to share,
Let me put this aside.
which I also am super happy that we're doing this. This was also another crowd pleaser over the holidays. Friends of ours had a birthday and we wanted to do something fun, yet we were strapped for time for dinner. So
Our good friends Chuck and Nancy have birthdays bracketed around Christmas. And we thought, well, that's kind of unfair, but you know, they're good friends, and they said, you know, we'd like to come over for dinner sometime with you, and they wanted to have us over for dinner, so we went over there and had this giant crab feed, and we went, you come over for Chuck's birthday, and we made a new dish for them, which was a beef tenderloin. And it turned out great.
if I knew that it was this easy to make something this delicious, I would have been making this years ago. And it pairs with all the wines we had on the table. So, like Thanksgiving and a lot of other holidays, people want to bring a dish and people want to bring wine. And so we had Cabernet and we had Pinot and we had Sauvignon Blanc and we had some Rosé. And this was a dish that really worked with everything. And I seriously never think to do this, but it turns out so tender, so beautiful, and it doesn't take very much time, and there aren't a lot of ingredients. Now, what I didn't realize was this is the cut of meat that you use for a beef Wellington.
Yes.
So, and a beef Wellington is obviously the beef tenderloin, and then it's got usually a mushroom coating of some kind, and then pastry around it.
That's correct.
So I thought, well, we could certainly do that without the pastry coating, although many people do that, enjoy that, but can you hold that up?
I sure can.
Because that is...
And Chuck doesn't like mushrooms, so we weren't going to do that.
No, we didn't want to do mushrooms.
But let me show you this beef tenderloin. It's a lovely muscle of beef that comes out, and you can make it rare, which we love, at about 130 degrees. That's about 11 to 12 minutes a pound. Or you can cook it longer for medium to 140 degrees.
Internal temperature.
Internal temperature,
Internal
yes.
temperature.
And, I mean, that's just a beautiful little piece of beef. I could actually just on it, but I won't.
Except I would have to fight you for it.
But it's gorgeous, and it took like 45 minutes of cooking. It took about a half an hour to prep it, and in this case, I decided to kind of made up my own recipe for the prep, and I did a triple prep. It's marinated inside and outside. In other words, I injected it with some really nice things, some red wine, some olive oil, a little bit of shiokoji. If you want to try to find that, that's fun. Then I took slits and I studded it with garlic cloves that were roasted garlic. I got a whole roasted garlic and put cloves all the way through it.
Because if it's not done in advance, the garlic isn't going to cook.
No,
if you put it long enough.
No, if you put it raw garlic in there, it'll come out not just warm and crunchy as heck and really too strong.
Right.
And then I coated it with rosemary and a little bit of the umami rub, the mushroom powder and the garlic powder. So you have garlic and rosemary and mushrooms. And the nice thing about the umami powder is it doesn't taste like mushrooms. So we could get by with that because Chuck hates mushrooms. And yet he tasted this and went, oh my God, umami just brings out the flavor. It makes it taste more like beef. And it was so delicious. So we had umami, we had rosemary, we had garlic, and we had this beautiful piece of beef that was also injected and studded. So it was a triple. And we used the winemaker's pantry.
We used the winemaker's pantry for Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yeah.
So, and you could use Pinot or Cabernet Franc, but that was what the rub on the outside.
Did you want to taste a slice of this, honey?
Oh, I do think I do.
Okay. It slices so well. You know, the word tender is the first thing right out of tenderloin.
Yeah.
And when we first had this, we thought, my gosh, that's about the most tender piece of beef we've ever had.
So, at about the cooking time, about 12 minutes.
12 minutes a pound, and this was about 3.5 to 4 pounds, so it was about 45 minutes of cooking. And it was the easiest thing. As I said, it took about 30 minutes to prep it, and then about 45 minutes to cook it. So I prepped it before people got here, and we timed it so that it was going to come out about 20 minutes after they arrived, so we had time for appetizers. And you have to rest it for about 10 minutes. So the total time that we had once they showed up was about 30 minutes before we served it, which was perfect timing. I was very happy with that. And you hardly needed a knife. We served knives with it, but I mean,
Because you would.
You can cut it with a fork.
Yeah. So, like I said, we had lots of wine on the table. We had Cabernet, we had some Pinot Noir, and we had some Malbec on the table.
Yeah.
But I think what showed well and was a beautiful pair was the Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yeah.
And this one in particular, tonight we've got the 2018 Bechlins Cabernet, which is really the best of the Valley floor for Cornerstone cellars. It's got some Rutherford in it, some Oakville Station, tiny little bit of Hell Mountain maybe, but don't tell nobody. And then Coonsville. So,
sure.
Cabernet
That is
Sauvignon.
such a delicious piece of beef. I mean, it's the umami that brings out the beefiness, but the beef itself. Tenderloin, you know, you've heard of Chateaubriand, that's the center portion of the tenderloin. But the tenderloin is one of the most expensive cuts of beef out there. And just be careful when you're out shopping because different stores will serve different prices. And we went into one store that shall be nameless, and we went, wow, that's a lot of money. We went to another store, it was even more money, but we went across the street. it was 30% less than anything we had found.
Right.
We thought, well, this is crazy. It wasn't on sale. It was just their normal price. We thought, okay, we're buying it here. And, we had to run around a little bit, but we saved a third of the price. So it was really, really good. So shop carefully, but we always thought we didn't serve tenderloin very often because it is so expensive. But we found a decent price. We served it. It was such a big hit. We said we have to do this for the show. And so this is what we cooked for Christmas.
This is one of the stars of our Christmas
It
vacation.
sure was.
For sure.
And a new addition to our repertoire.
Cabernet Sauvignon, 2018. That is lush and juicy and flavorful and complex, and it pairs beautifully with the rub that you put on the outside of the meat.
We should call somebody because beef and Cabernet might go together. I mean, that's something that's pretty good.
We should do. We should write a book.
Oh, there's a good idea. Or call one of the magazines.
Yeah, remember books?
They're made out of paper, right? And you leaf through them. That's very good. Well, the other thing I didn't mention is, of course, you use salt and pepper on the outside of this as well. My good buddy that likes to cook with me likes to salt things, and he says I'm dry brining, but really what you're doing is just salting it, which is fine. And we put some salt and pepper on this, and then we put the rosemary and the garlic on there. And the rosemary and garlic, to me, always reminds me of southern France, like Provence. And those flavors really come out, and it tastes like this nice country beef, but it goes so well with a very sophisticated Cabernet Sauvignon.
And the dish pairs beautifully in that the dish makes the wine taste better, and the wine makes the dish taste better. And that's really a perfect pair, and the bridge ingredients in there.
And you have that lovely first course of the really fairly simple and yet delicious shrimp, and then you have the second course of this complex beef, and you start with a nice crisp, delicious Sauvignon Blanc, and then you have this nice velvety Cabernet Sauvignon. So it's a really good dinner. You can't beat it.
Yeah.
Who needs vegetables?
Oh, well, vegetables will be good. So anyway, we're kind of running out of time, and I want to say thank you for joining us. This is our first episode back after the new year. We're thrilled to
Happy
be
New
here.
Year, everybody.
Back with you. Happy New Year. Next week we'll be in the cellar. We've got a lot of work going on in the cellar this week and next week. We've got 2021, the new vintage. Has been resting in barrel over the holidays over the last month or so. So we're going to go in and we're going to be tasting some of the new vintage, which will be fun to see how that's coming along.
Sure. And then the week after that, you're going to be
the
doing
week after that, I'll be out in the vineyard. And the week after, well, we're starting to do pruning.
Yes.
We're doing our winter work out in the vineyard. So it gives us our first chance to be able to see what the vines are going to be doing for the upcoming season.
So I won't see you for a few weeks, but then we'll be back in the kitchen cooking. So we're looking forward to having you back.
A couple of weeks. So thank you so much. Happy New Year to everyone. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you.
It's good to see you back in the
Nice
kitchen
to see
again.
you. I love eating too and drinking. It's so much fun. I just went back to the shrimp for a moment. It's so good.
I'm going to do that as soon as you turn that camera off.
All right, say goodbye,
So
folks.
we're going to say goodbye and thank you again for joining us for Cornerstone Cellars. Our tasting room, our new tasting room is open in Yountville. Please come and visit us. We're ready to host guests, and we're super excited that we've flung the doors open in just a couple of months ago. So please join us, and we'll see you next time.